So should the former Chancellor win, he will become the country's third Prime Minister in just 7 weeks. Speaking in the capital, these Londoners are hoping his appointment will help restore some much-needed stability.
I'm definitely not sad we're going to get Boris. I think that whole situation was a real pig at the end. And equally the same with his trust, right? I think it's scary how we've kind of turned a page and continued down the same track. So I think Rishi seems a little bit more astute with stuff, but at the same time, I think there's some big things that he's got to come up against straight away. So he's got a big job, but we'll see.
No, I don't think so. I think he's broken too many bridges, and I trust somebody who's. Let's go back to the competence word again. Yeah, I'd rather have Richie back in office.
I just think it was chaotic when he was in charge, so I don't want to see that again. I got sick of watching the news and every night something new popping up, so we just need some stability right now.
I'd like to see a Labour Prime Minister. Simple as that.
Well, for the very latest, we can now cross live to Westminster and speak to Arise Chief Correspondent John Cookson. Good day, John. And now the £1 million question, is Rishi Sunak going to win the race to be the UK's Prime Minister?
I'll have a £10 bet now, guys. Yeah, great to be on Newsday. I think he's pretty much got it in the bag. Let's just talk about numbers at the moment. The two main contenders, that's Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt, they have to get 100 votes each. Well, last time I checked, Rishi Sunak had 188 votes from MPs, and Penny Mordaunt just 27. Now, there is less than an hour to go, and it's conceivable that Mordaunt might cross the 100 mark, but she'll have to garner a lot of votes in the next hour. Where have the Boris Johnson votes gone, for example? Do they go to Penny Mordaunt? They may do. We'll have to wait and see. We'll know at about 2 o'clock, 2:15, but it looks very much at this moment that Rishi Sunak will be the next leader of the Conservative Party and also Prime Minister. He's got the backing of James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, Nadim Zahawi, former Chancellor, Priti Patel, former Home Office Secretary, and also another big Tory beast, Michael Gove. So it's looking pretty certain that this man has it in the bag. 42 years old, Rishi Sunak, one of the youngest prime ministers in UK history, born in Southampton in the south of England to Hindu parents. His father was born in Kenya, his mother was born in Tanganyika, now Tanzania, and if he succeeds to number 10, he'll be the first non-Christian Prime Minister that the UK has ever had. So that's a page turned, if you like, in political history. He's got a lot of big problems on his plate, not least roaring inflation at over 10%, the cost of living crisis, the war in Ukraine. But first, let's get him over the winning post. As I say, we should know within an hour or so that Rishi Sunak is destined to be the UK's next Prime Minister.
Thank you, John. Well, what's the process now to the next Prime Minister being appointed?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I say, each of the two contenders have to get 100 votes. If Rishi Sunak, we know Rishi Sunak has 188, so he's across the line. Penny Mordaunt has to get those 100. If she does get over 100, then it goes to what's called an indicative vote, another vote by MPs that will be heard at around 5 or 6 o'clock this afternoon. And if one is not a clear leader, either Mordaunt or Sunak, then it will go to the Conservative Party to make a decision by next Friday. There's 160,000 of them to vote, and the votes will be online. Let's say that Sunak has won and he becomes the next leader of the Conservative Party. He doesn't become Prime Minister until he's been asked by King Charles to form a government. So I don't know what King Charles's availability is today. It may well be that it will go tomorrow that he actually becomes Prime Minister. At the moment, if he gets across the line ahead of Mordaunt, he'll be Prime Minister in waiting, as it were.
Now, shifting our attention to the markets, John, we saw the pound taking a bit of a knock at close of business on Friday. How are things looking today?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, the pound was in free fall. The markets too, they hated trust economics. Unfunded tax cuts just wasn't going to wash with the city. The city loves Rishi Sunak. He's a former Goldman Sachs banker. He's incredibly wealthy. His wife too. They come from a business background. He worked in business in the United States, where he still has a home, and him and the current Chancellor of the Exchequer, in a way, Jeremy Hunt, that is, in a way, is a dream ticket to stabilise everything. And indeed, when I last checked, the pound was $1.14, which is at a high in recent weeks, and also the FTSE index also having a surge. So there's a lot of optimism in the city, and all hopes, I think, as far as the city is concerned, that Rishi Sunak becomes the next Prime Minister.
And what will happen to Boris Johnson now? What do you think, John?
Where is Boris? We haven't seen him for about 24 hours. There's that murky photograph from somewhere yesterday of him sat on the phone with the Union Jack behind him, trying to rally support, but yeah, he pulled out. Look, he's still an MP in Uxbridge in West London. He hasn't been seen in Uxbridge for a few weeks. He's been lolling on the beach in the Caribbean the last week or so, but he did come back on Saturday. I suspect that he's going to drop out of politics, at least for the time being. He did say, did he not, when he left Parliament, his final words to the House of Commons was "hasta la vista," and also on the steps of Downing Street when he left in July, he compared himself with the Roman senator who made a bit of a comeback. So maybe he will make a comeback politically in, say, 2024, when the next general election is likely, but you know, he can earn so much on the after-dinner speaking circuit, and he's got his books as well. And also he's got a wife and kids to look after, who've no doubt been slightly neglected in the last few months. So Boris, larger than life, quiet at the moment. We don't know where he is today. Will he have a place in the Sunak government? I suspect not. Will he appear on the backbenches of the House of Commons? Perhaps. Will he disappear forever? We'll have to wait and see.
Now let's look at the future of the Conservative Party, because one of Boris Johnson's main reasons for stepping down was, of course, that he couldn't possibly lead a disunited Conservative Party, so to speak. What does the future look like for these parties? For this party, excuse me.
A lot depends really on what Sunak does. Remember when we talked about this before, that Liz Truss surrounded herself in cabinet with her mates, her pals, her supporters. What Sunak has to do is to draw in some of those who didn't vote for him, and some perhaps are even his enemy. He has to have them around the cabinet table to keep, not only to keep a close eye on them and perhaps win them over, but also appeal to the party as a whole and to unite the party. So bring ministers in from all elements, from right, from centre, and from left. He himself is a Thatcherite, a libertarian, believes in non-inclusive government and also low taxes. He won't be able to achieve that in the short term because we're facing high taxes and the cuts in government spending. But once he's got through this difficult period, maybe in the new year, he can start putting into effect some of the policies promised in the 2019 manifesto, the manifesto on which Boris Johnson won the race in 2019. So much really depends on who Rishi Sunak appoints to his cabinet as to the future of the Conservative Party, because he knows if it fails this time, then the Conservatives will be out, possibly for a generation. A 200-year-old party, been in power for 12 years. There's a hunger in certain parts of the country for a Labour government. And Labour are ahead in the polls, 32% ahead in the polls, ahead of the Conservatives. If there's an election tomorrow, there'll be a landslide to Labour. But look, the Tories aren't going to call an election anytime soon.
Well, Arise Chief Correspondent, live from Westminster, John Cookson, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.